Live from the Cigar Lounge and straight to your speakers, welcome to the CSO Herf Lounge, the podcast where we talk club, cigars, sports, and most of all, we talk shit. So grab your favorite stick, pour yourself a drink, and settle in. Fellowship, fire, flavor. This is the CSO Herf Lounge.
Good evening to the CSO Cigar Club. I'm here with Jeff. He just joined the Cigar Club a few weeks ago, a month ago, and he is a bourbon steward. And how you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, Joe. How you been?
Great, doing good. We're hot down here in Florida. You're up in Minnesota?
Yeah, west central Minnesota. So fared about an hour from Fargo.
What are you smoking today?
Tonight it's Taco Tuesday, so I've got a Rojas Street Taco Barbacoa. One of my favorites. Yeah, I always have a box of these.
Yeah, definitely.
In the humidor. They're affordable and just a lot of complexity. So good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I have your favorite, the hot cake, fresh out of the oven.
Oh, HVC. Can't get enough. They're on fire, man.
Yeah, they're great.
Good cigars. There's plenty of cigars to pick from. That's the beauty of things.
Yeah, definitely. So Jeff, explain, our club, there's a lot of new cigar, people smoking cigars, and a lot of, including me, a new people with bourbon and drinks trying to pair. I'm a big coffee guy with cigars, but I'm starting to get into the bourbon. Yeah. So how do you become a bourbon steward?
Well, it's a long journey for me. I grew up, I'm almost 60, and I seriously didn't really start drinking whiskey until I hit about age 40. I just didn't seem to care for the brown liquors. I avoid it for some reason, even though my dad was a Canadian whiskey drinker all his life. But at a class reunion, a buddy and I were just sitting there, and he said, "Hey, try this. It's something that I'm starting to dabble in." And we did some whiskey and soda, just a very simple, light drink, club soda and some whiskey. And said, that doesn't offend me like I remember whiskey offending me. So I started, really that started it off, and just buying a few things locally, the stuff you can find on the shelf, and trying it and working my way up in both maybe cost or proof point, things like that, realizing I do like this. And then more recently, in the last 5 years, started following a group, the ABV Network, out of the St. Louis area, and a gentleman named Steve Akeley, who's now a good friend of mine, opened a single barrel liquor store in Arnold, Missouri, just outside of St. Louis. And he goes to distilleries, brings a group of people. They'll get to sample right out of a barrel, and they'll pick the best barrel and get it barreled at proof point, and selling those. And I've realized my palate enjoys the higher proof that a barrel proof will bring you, but the complexity of flavors is so amazing. The things that you can find in there when you take your time. You're not, at my age, I'm not drinking to get inebriated. That's
exactly
not the deal. I will sip, and I'm a big guy. I can sit quite a
Right.
while, and especially if I'm just sitting at home, I don't need to drive anywhere, so I don't have to worry. And so that's a bit of my journey. You asked about becoming an executive bourbon steward, and there's a organization in Louisville, Kentucky, Stave and Thief Society, that put on a 1 day training class that teaches you about what is bourbon, how do you properly taste, how do you properly nose, what are the differences, what are the similarities, and what are the laws around bourbon, and
Right.
then what does it mean to be a bourbon steward, to share the love that you have for this particular type of liquor, and to correct those that have misunderstandings about whiskey, things like that. 1 day, very
Right.
intense, and you get tested at the end, and so a group of
Oh, wow.
friends and myself and my wife went out to Kentucky on a trip. We were visiting several distilleries, and one of the days we took that class and really enjoyed it. It was quite fun, but quite intense. You got a lot of learning in a day, and it really opened up my eyes. So I've gone farther beyond what you were really asking there, but I really wanted
No, that's
to
fine.
share a little bit of how I got into whiskey, and how it's okay if I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever age you are, if you haven't tried it.
Yeah.
It's just like with cigars. I encourage people to keep an open mind and an open palate, and find out maybe there is something out there that appeals to them, and go from there.
Right. No, that's I've always been a beer drinker. To be honest, and then when I started getting into cigars, I heard the bourbon and coffee, and so I'm trying to, develop a taste for
Yeah, and
bourbon.
there's
Um,
certainly a lot of things that pair well with a cigar, right? I mean,
yeah.
whether it's a whether it's a soda, and what type of soda, whether it's liquor. Some things maybe don't as well. Maybe gin is a little tougher to pair with something, but tequilas and whiskeys. But obviously, a lot of non-alcoholic. Heck, a hot chocolate
Right.
with the right cigar can be great. But whiskeys in particular, and what I
Yes.
found in my dabblings here over the last 5 years, and I've only been smoking cigars, premium cigars, on a regular basis for about 5 years, maybe six. So it's fairly new. I'm newer to cigars than I am to enjoyment of whiskey. I don't know if I'm more schooled in one or the other, but just through
Yeah.
experience, So whiskey is a great pairing option, and there's a variety of whiskeys too. So we can't just say any whiskey is going to pair well with every cigar.
Yeah. Can you uh I poured myself some Wild Turkey 101, which you told me
Okay.
is very approachable
Yeah,
and
so 101 might scare some people, right? It's 21 proof points higher than a lot of whiskeys that you'll find that are bottled at 80. 80 is
okay.
by definition the lowest that a bourbon can be bottled at. So that's the
Uh-huh.
that's the low end, 40% alcohol. And those can even have a bite. So you can't
Yeah.
just count the proof. But what I found about Wild Turkey 101 is it starts to have a complexity of flavors at a little higher point. It'll stand up in a cocktail if you'd like to make a cocktail. I drink a lot of my whiskey just straight, but I, to each his own. Anything that you want to do that helps you enjoy it. That's what I encourage. I just encourage people to try different things.
Yeah.
But Wild Turkey 101, a lot of great flavors. That tends to be aged a bit longer.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think the standard is maybe 7 years, and they do have a one that's out that's an 8 year. They just Wild Turkey 101 8 year, which is really a really tasty whiskey as well. I've got the
Yeah,
I've
I
got the
can when
101 right here.
yeah, yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, when I opened it I could I felt like I could smell the cinnamon.
So
Um,
yeah, it's what's really interesting, and everybody, there's no cinnamon in it, right? It's just like a cigar. If you taste cinnamon, it's bringing you
right,
back. It's reminding you. In most of the cigars I smoke, there's going to be no additives to that. Just like a whiskey, a bourbon, a true bourbon that meets the law won't have any
right,
additives. It's coming from the grain bale. It's coming from the barrel, and they can
nice.
do some things to the barrel to bring out different flavors. And uh, it's quite scientific, to be honest.
Yeah. Can you give us like a beginner's guide between bourbon, whiskey, scotch, that kind of stuff? We had
Yeah.
a guy
So,
at
but
work trying to explain to us, and we were all scratching our heads.
yeah, it can get a little
That's a,
confusing. So,
yeah.
all bourbon is whiskey. All scotch is whiskey. But not all
Okay.
whiskeys can be called a scotch. Not all whiskeys can be called bourbon. So there's different brands that are not brands, different styles of whiskey that each have their own definition. So bourbon by law is a product that has to be made where? What's your guess?
Kentucky.
Nope.
Could,
That's what
no.
a lot of people think. It just has to be made in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
Kentucky has a lot of the things that really led to production of the whiskey. They had the oak for making barrels. They had grains that would grow in that climate. They had the weather that would lead to good aging. So if it's too hot all the time, like in Texas, it's much more challenging to age your whiskey. If it's too cold, you don't get the movement in and out of the liquor, the whiskey into and out of the barrel as the barrel contracts over time. So
Right.
again, bourbon can be made anywhere in the U.S. Has to be 51% or more corn. So half corn. That's where the sweet nature tends to come from. It
Right.
needs to be aged in a new oak barrel, and that barrel is typically toasted and or charred to give it that magic, the color, the flavors that come from it. Let's see. There's probably a couple others that I'm missing, but those
No.
are the key differences. And then you get into the nuances of straight whiskey. Well,
Uh huh.
straight whiskey needs to be aged a minimum of 2 years. And if it's aged less than 4 years, then that has to show up on the label. So if someone wants to be a straight whiskey or straight bourbon, and it's 3 years old, it'll say age 3 years on the label.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so there's just laws. You can distill it up to a maximum of, I believe, 160 proof, and it can't enter the barrel higher than, I think, 120 or 125. Okay, so you have to, if you have it distilled at a higher level, you've got to water it down till it gets to that 120
I
or
see.
125. Then you age
So
it and
it'll
pull it
lower.
out when you think it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the same whiskey barrels that, I've heard on podcast and read that a lot of cigar manufacturers put tobacco in there, let it sit in there.
Yeah. So if you think of what we just talked about, it has to be a new oak barrel each
Uh
time.
huh.
So you can't reuse a bourbon barrel to make bourbon. So once it's done, they've got to find a home for it. And then they might, a lot
Right.
of them get sold to Scotland where they age Scotch. So a Scotch will
Okay.
often not be started in a new barrel. Once the Scotch is done with it, they might ship it back down to the Caribbean and they're going to make rum and age their rum. They
Oh
might
wow.
send it from there over to Mexico or somewhere that makes tequila. These barrels have a pretty long lifespan with many different varieties of things. You can also, for a bourbon, you might get a finished bourbon. It might be finished in a wine barrel. That's disclosed on the label. It's not. It can still be bourbon, because you've done all your aging and things
Yeah.
that met the law. Then you can go finish it in whatever you want. And
Interesting.
that's a very popular trend right now. You'll see bottles that just say finished in a in a some type of wine, often a dark red wine or something like that. Or
Okay.
yeah,
Nice. That's interesting.
yeah. There's
Yeah, I didn't know any of that stuff.
it's and you don't necessarily. In reality, do you need to know any of that? No. I'm kind of a nerd that way. I'm an engineer
Right,
by
right.
training. I like to dive in a little bit. I'm not going to be able to steal. I'm not going to roll cigars for myself. I'm not going to get into that. But I like to know how all that stuff is done, and I like
Yeah.
to see it, and I like to see the passion. If you've met cigar people, uh, owners, employees of cigar brands, you know their passion for what they're doing.
Yes.
Go
Yes.
to a distillery, go to a craft distillery that has 4 or 5 or 10 employees and see the passion in what they're doing, to wanting to create what they think is the best expression of a bourbon or a whiskey. It's phenomenal. I just get such a kick out of that.
Nice. And we do have a friend that we have in common, Gene Haynes.
Gene Haynes
Uh,
over at
work.
El Rouleau. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to meet him
Yeah.
this
We work
spring.
together. We worked
Yeah, yeah,
together in law enforcement for 20, 30 years
sure.
together.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with him. He's at the factory there in Ybor City, and his office is up in the watchtower. That's what we always joke about,
Yeah.
that that's where he's at. But
Right.
no, he's got a lot of passion. He's not an owner. I don't know if they have
Yeah.
any employee ownership, but he's an employee. But he loves the brand
Yeah.
and he loves what he does, and he shows a lot of energy and passion for that. My wife and I really enjoyed visiting with him. We still keep up with him, um,
Nice.
whether it's
Yeah. I
texting or
belong to the Smoke and Shields, Florida division
okay,
of Smoke and Shields,
okay,
which
yeah,
is
that's great. So you get to stay in touch, and you
yeah.
do
Yeah. I see
you
him. I
do
see him at least, once a month or so.
okay. So we jump on some. There's a Discord group that has some, twice a week, some video calls, and we just sit around smoking cigars and chatting. And
Nice.
Gene is a frequent. He's way more frequent on there than I am. I try to join when I can, but he's always great to visit with.
So, how do you drink? Is there a right or wrong way to drink bourbon? Do you drink it neat?
They're
Do you drink it with ice? Or is it
you
just
know
a personal choice?
it's a personal choice. It really
Yeah.
is, and I don't want to. I don't ever uh, tell someone you shouldn't drink it that way. I
Uh-huh.
say, what you like. I do ask, have you tried it this way? Have you tried it straight? Have you tried it in a different glass? Have you tried it in a cocktail? What, what do you like about it? Maybe I'll learn something from them why they like it a
Yeah.
certain way.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Yeah.
my personal preference is typically straight, but if I'm on the lawnmower, I might put a low proof thing in a cup with some ginger ale, or maybe some limeade with some crushed
Yeah.
ice, and just have more of a
Sip on it
lighter
as you go. Yeah.
a lighter drink. And it's I probably drink it more than anything else because I have more of it than anything else, and it's always there. So you're finding ways to use it.
Right.
But again,
Doing
it's
your
it,
own
doing your own thing. But
doing your
I
own
just say,
experiments.
yeah, just try it, see what you like, know
Yeah.
what you don't like about it, but don't be afraid to try a different brand or a different proof point a different way. If you didn't like it straight, or you didn't like it on the rocks, or you didn't like it with a little water,
Right.
try something else though. Give it a fair shot, kind of like cigars. It's a lot
Yeah.
like cigars. I don't ever, I shouldn't say ever, but I rarely buy one. I'll usually buy at least two of a kind when I see a new one, something that I
Oh, okay.
haven't had new to me, because I know sometimes, hey, I might just have had something to eat or drink that isn't going to agree with the cigar. So I want to give it a fair shake, Fool me twice, I may not come back to you, but I'm going to give you at least two shots.
Yeah.
And I'd say the same thing with, with whiskey. But again, there's no wrong way to enjoy a good whiskey.
Right. Now let me ask you a question. The higher the price, the bourbon whiskey, is it any better? Or
It's a fair question, and you'd think that with a higher price, there should be something more special about it. Maybe it's more limited. Maybe it's older. It's been sitting around a while. It's like anything that ages, it's just
uh-huh.
sitting there costing money. And are you going to recover, if it has to sit an extra year, are you going to recover that much more money? Are you able to sell it for more? So, but the answer is the same with cigars. Does every $20 cigar beat that McAuliffe Black
Yeah.
for $9?
Yeah.
Or even $8. Are they all going to do that? They don't. So sometimes you're buying the history and the story. Not always. It's not always true. Sometimes there's going to be some history, some folklore about a brand making it better. So, but no, dollars don't equate to better. But yes, in general, overall, you should expect more flavor, more something from a higher priced whiskey.
Right.
But there's some very good bottom shelf whiskeys for about $20 for a 750
Yeah.
milliliter that are fantastic. Go get a bottle of Old Grandad. Go get something that's bottled in bond, so that's 100 proof and it's at least 4 years old. Um, my word, there's some good ones, and those aren't always very very highly priced. But
Yeah.
it dabble, and I'm not gonna assume whatever the buying power of everybody that's listening. You know, I'm at the end of my career. I can afford a $20 bottle of whiskey to
Sure.
go out and see if I like it. If I don't, um, I might use it for cocktails. There's only one bottle of whiskey that I've ever dumped down the drain. It just was,
Oh, really?
it was awful. I don't know the story behind it. A friend gave it to me, and I tried it and tried it again, and even tried it a third time, and just it was not good. Oh, I just said I'm not even going to put this in a drink, but you can put it in your barbecue sauce. There's all kinds of ways to use a whiskey. So go out
Yeah.
and try it, and I get it, but how many cigars do you buy that you just say, oh, I don't want to buy that one again? Um,
Yeah.
it's,
I can name a few.
yeah, it still happens. So uh, live within your means and try some different things. That's just if I could give some advice, keep an open mind, open palate,
Yeah.
try broadly, and then try the pairings. Find out what works.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. I know. Work with some guys that might spend a little more than a normal person on bourbon or scotch.
Yeah, and I like a lot of whiskeys. Scotch I struggle with to some degree. They're much more flavor forward. They age a long time typically. The climate's
Yeah.
different. It's a slow aging. They talk about a 12-year Scotch is still pretty young. You see 18, 20, 25. That's why some of
Yeah.
those get to be pricey. They're sitting around. They've been distilled a long time, and they're sitting there, and they certainly have, whether it's where they were made, it's how they malted the grains that are in the mash bill. There's all kinds of things that go into that. Scotch and I haven't grown up enough to be a regular Scotch drinker.
Yeah. We got guys that drink scotch.
Yeah, and Scotch is
Uh,
another type of whiskey that has its own sets of rules to what I don't even know what they are. I'm assuming one of them is it needs to be made somewhere in Scotland. I assume that's still the case. I don't know if
right.
I've seen a Japanese Scotch. They could mimic the process. You could make all kinds of things that in the U.S. would be called bourbon. You can make them anywhere, but we can't call them a bourbon because they weren't made in the U.S.
So yeah. Okay. So scotch isn't necessarily. It's just aged more, but it's not necessarily better. Um,
It, you know,
More expensive is not better.
No, I'd say ask anybody what's their favorite Scotch. You'll get a lot of people that like something like a Jameson's, an Irish whiskey. There's a lot of, I grew up in northern Minnesota. Canadian whiskey was everywhere. A lot of fans of Canadian whiskey. It's made
Yeah.
differently. A lot of rye up there because it grows in the northern climate. They tend to not have a lot of high proof stuff for whatever reason. Um, they do a lot of Canadian whiskey. A lot of that is blended. So it's whether they're blending different mash bills together or
Yeah.
they're making blends of single grain distillate. Whether it's after it's been aged or before. A lot of blending. Blending happens with bourbon. Blending happens with all kinds of whiskeys, and there's nothing wrong with a blended. It's somebody with hopefully with a really good palate has taken the time to put some things together and decide that this tastes really good. Let's sell it.
Right.
The bottle that you're drinking, the Wild Turkey 101,
Yes.
that's technically a blend of the same batch because every barrel of whiskey is going to taste different than the one next to it.
Oh, I
There's
see.
the distillate that went in it may be exactly the same, but they can't guarantee that the char was the same that happened inside that barrel. They
Right.
can't guarantee that the staves that built that barrel had the same density, and there's all kinds of things that'll play into it. So that's why when people go do barrel picks, they get to taste things out of 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 different barrels and say, wow, I really like barrel 7. There's going to
Yes.
be enough difference in that you're picking what you think is the best that you had that day.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so
And
it's very interesting putting the same thing into something that looks exactly the same, putting it
yeah.
right next to the next one in the rick house, the barrel warehouse might be
Right.
right next to it. Now you'd think that those are going to be closer together, but the difference between the bottom floor and the top floor of a rick house, there's different temps that are happening at those places all the time.
Right.
You'll get wildly different results, but those will tend to be Maker's Mark. They blend something like, or they pour together, they make a batch of like 350 barrels makes one batch. And you're
Oh,
maybe
wow.
getting 275 bottles out of each barrel. They're making a pretty big batch.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Any recommendations on a higher priced bourbon or scotch?
well, I've been thinking about this, and what first thing came to mind is I wonder if I can really turn on the Lords of 15B and put them onto
Oh,
some good stuff.
oh, you've heard about the Lords of
They're
15B?
everywhere. I mean, it's in the newsletter,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. They like the Lords of 15B. Yes.
Lords of 15B.
Yeah, the Lords like to drink you know, higher
Yeah,
higher
so
priced.
I'll put it this way: I am not a chaser. I don't go after typically the things that have been allocated. I'm not going to get up early and wait in line for a drawing to see if I can get a
Right.
chance at something. But if I could buy one bottle of whiskey, and I don't even know the MSRP, but it'd be a George T. Stag, and there's two. There'd be one that's Stag, and we like to call that one Stag Junior. It's in a
Uh-huh.
squatter bottle. It's a little shorter. The George T. Stag is a taller, more slender bottle. That might be some of the best whiskey on the planet. Pretty phenomenal,
Wow.
hard to find. I've only had it once at a bar in Louisville. So, but
Nice.
the other one that you hear a ton about would be like Pappy Van Winkle. That's the one of the kings of the allocated whiskeys. They only make so much. When I started buying whiskey, drinking whiskey in about 2010, I could buy it at my local bottle shop. The
Uh-huh.
20 year was $100, and I was like, oh my God! But I bought one, and the 15 year was 50. And about 2 years later, and I wasn't drinking a lot of it because that was the most expensive bottle of whiskey I'd ever purchased, so I was just taking my time with it.
Right.
within a year or two that they started talking about, hey, this truck got hijacked, we got a shortage. It was the beginning of, hey, you're never going to find this. And now the MSRP on a
The
20-year or
legend. Yeah.
23-year is, thousands if you can find it. And
Uh,
it's you won't find that one. So I don't recommend. I'm not saying go try to chase this, but
yeah.
there's quite a few whiskeys in that 70, 75 to $125 range that are out there that are they're going to tend to be pretty good. Um,
Nice. I have a
I,
question
I
for you.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say
Um.
I drink a lot of craft whiskey, so that would
Okay.
be similar to boutique cigars. They're smaller, they're doing interesting things. I probably buy for every 20 bottles I buy, 19 of them are craft, and one of them might be a heritage brand, a big,
Okay.
a bigger player. I just enjoy what they do, and again, I tend to go after the higher proofs, and you can find more of that in the crafts on a
And
regular basis.
you, you are. When I heard you on cigar pulpit, um, the Bishop of the Burn, which is a great
Yeah,
name. He's got to use that more. I love that name, the
yeah,
Bishop of the
Nick
Burn.
Miller.
But is it in my mind like if I have Buffalo Trace and I smoke a Buffalo Trace cigar, it just seems to match, or is that just
Right.
in my
Yeah, I
mind?
would. Yeah, I think it would. No, Buffalo Trace. The Buffalo
Uh huh.
Trace distillery is fabulous, and they have got marketing figured out because even that product, Buffalo Trace by itself, which is a sub $30 bottle for 750 milliliters, they were allocating that all over the place. They just
Right.
were not releasing that much of that, so it was hard to find. So people would chase it, and when the distillery you'd go visit this distillery, you hoped it was Buffalo Trace Day where they were putting bottles out that you could buy one bottle when you came for a visit. Um,
Wow.
and and it's a good whiskey. It's a decent whiskey. Again, I don't know if the entry point on that one is maybe it might be 90 proof. I don't recall offhand. I should have looked that up. And my guess is, and the last time I was there last December, they make quite a few different brands at the distillery, and they had quite a few
Yeah.
different brands of cigars that went with that, whether it was Weller or the Buffalo Trace. They had a bunch of those. So I've bought a bunch of those cigars that are tied to a whiskey, and I'm going to do some type of comparison at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Letting them sit for a couple of years,
I di-
and I'm just going to try them. Are they any
yeah. I
good?
didn't know if it
Were
was in my
they,
mind or
yeah, were they
if the cigar
aged in a
maker.
yeah, they aged in a Buffalo Trace barrel? I don't even know if I know the answer to that.
Yeah. I don't
Some
know. I
cigars
don't know.
are. So there are some partnerships where that's what they do. So
Nice.
that's something that to take a look at. But yes, you should. And even if it's in your mind,
Yeah.
we taste with our eyes, I think, and we read this name on the bottle, this name on the label of cigar.
Right.
Of course, it's going to match up nicely. That I think there's a little fun in that. When I mentioned some higher proof, so I've got a bottle here, and it's Art of the Spirits. They're out of Missouri, and this is their. Uh, I'm just going to say F Cancer
Uh
bottle.
huh.
That's
Nice.
they call this one. Well, this is a high proof. They call it hazmat. Anything over 140 proof, you can't even really ship or take on an airplane. It's too high a proof.
Oh wow.
152 proof. So 76% alcohol in this particular whiskey. 6 years. I don't know how old this one is. Age 10 years. This one's 10 years old. So they were able to age this one down. They don't get a lot of bottles out of a barrel that's been aged that long. Price
Uh
tends
huh.
to go up. That was probably a $150 bottle of
Oh wow.
whiskey.
So, what would you suggest? You know, I'm a I'm a light to medium cigar guy. A lot of
Okay.
Connecticut's medium. What would you suggest the Wild Turkey 101?
That, so that was a
What would you
little bit of a
suggest on that?
yeah, that was a little bit of a bolder selection. That's maybe as high as I would go as far as
Uh-huh.
proof point right out of the gate. But I would definitely, whether it is, there's different types of bourbon. You can get a wheated bourbon. That means the secondary grain that goes with the corn is wheat. Um, and most bourbons will have some, maybe a low level, maybe 5 to 10 to 12% of what's malted barley. That's where they get the enzymes and starting to get the distillation
Right.
process going. Um, Wheated tend to be a softer on the palate. Not always, but in general, you can taste that. To me, the flavor's a little more muted. So that's as a maybe a starter or someone who likes milder to medium
Yeah.
cigars. Those are good starting points. Maker's Mark, um,
Yeah. Yeah. I picked some of that up too.
Basil
You told me
Hayden's.
to.
Yeah, Basil Hayden's sells a variety of whiskeys. They have bourbon, they have rye, they have some blends. They might have a toasted, so they toast the barrel before they put a char on it, which kind of slow cooks it, and it changes what comes out of the finished product as that whiskey's moving in and out through the grains of the wood and going past that char layer. Um, so I think something like that, I generally again stay with the lower proof, but inch your way up because you may someday say, you know what, I'm kind of liking a little spicier cigar. Ah, rye whiskeys, whether it's a rye by itself, which means it'll be a high percentage rye,
Right.
80%, or maybe it's a high rye bourbon. I don't know if there's a legal definition of high rye. In my mind, if it's 20% rye or higher, that tends to be a high rye. If you just want to say stereotypically, those will have more spice.
Uh-huh.
And that spice can overpower a cigar pretty easily. So it's trying to find that balance. And I do enjoy one puff, one sip, or maybe a couple puffs and one sip.
Okay.
And some people may say they do it the other way, and I don't necessarily, I don't
Right.
have a balance. There's just going to be a gap, but I try to take my time and see, are they complementing each other? Does one bring out something that I wasn't getting before? When I'm
Right.
smoking a cigar, I do get different flavors. I don't know if it's coming directly from the whiskey or is the whiskey
Or
knocking
is it
something out of the smoke onto a different part of my palate. I don't know the
right.
answer to that, but it definitely changes. You said you drink a lot of coffee with yours. It does the same thing. Coffee can
Yeah.
bring out some wonderful flavors, and
Yeah. And
you find a
different
creamy
types of
cigar.
coffee, you know what I mean?
Well, and there's so many varieties of coffee too. Even if you're drinking
Yeah.
straight black coffee, is it Vietnamese? Is it Costa Rica? Is it Honduras? Where did it come
Right.
from? Um, yeah, it
Espresso
really
or
is unlimited,
yeah.
unlimited.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to pair? Is there such thing as a mistake of pairing a cigar with a whiskey? What's the biggest mistake they make?
Ah, I think that we might be setting ourselves up for disappointment if we think every whiskey should pair with every cigar. It's
Uh-huh.
okay to come up with something that doesn't work. So I just say don't set your sights too high. The other might be trying to find two extremes. So if you've got a cigar you love that's really high spice, high power, and you're going to try to pair it with a very low proof, very general, softly flavored whiskey, you'll lose the whiskey. It
I
won't
see.
bring out, I don't think it'll bring out the nuance of the whiskey that you're hoping for. So you can, if you're on opposite ends of the spectrum, it's probably not going to work as you'd hoped. But I
Right.
don't know if there's that too many mistakes you can make. Because if I'm sitting out in my little cigar shack in my garage and I've got 8 or 9 bottles at my feet, if one isn't tasting good with the cigar, I'll just go to something else.
I
I'm
got you.
not
I
afraid
got you.
to try it.
Right.
I'd say if you're afraid to try it, that might be a mistake. Just give it a try. If whiskey's not for you, great. There's all kinds of other stuff out there, man. Cream soda, root
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
My
I'm a
word,
big root beer guy too. Yeah.
A&W root beer, zero
Yeah.
calorie. They're that
Yeah.
thing
I've
that
had
thing
that.
pairs with so many things. It's just amazing what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because there's those times when you want a cigar and you can't have a drink because
Well,
of where you're going later or whatever.
anytime I drive more than an hour, I'm lighting up in my vehicle. Obviously, I'm not drinking then. I'm going to have a
Yeah.
soda. I'm going to have a iced tea. I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to have a water. My biggest
Right.
pairing companion is probably water. I do
Oh, really?
a lot of that, but I again in the evenings when I'm winding down from work, I do like to have some whiskey with that.
All right. Um, I'm gonna have a lightning round. How's that?
I'll see if I can keep up.
I mean, you got time, but so the first things that come to your mind, okay? Um, your favorite special occasion bourbon,
My
weddings,
yeah, my favorite special
funerals.
occasion is a Leopold Brothers out of Colorado,
Uh huh.
and they have what's called a three chamber still. So it's a very labor intensive, more expensive, less efficient process of distilling. It is fabulous. They malt their own barley. They heat it and they're pushing it around with special shovels to get the seed to germinate, and it's fabulous stuff. It's just any of their three chamber whiskeys, bourbons are fabulous, and that's a great special occasion, and you can buy it
Nice,
online, buy it right from them. It'll get shipped to you from New York City, but they will sell it to you.
nice. Most overrated bourbon that you've had.
I think I'll just, and I hate to do this because there's nothing wrong with it, but Blanton's.
Oh, really?
Blanton's was
I have a bottle of that, but I have not opened it. I was waiting for a special occasion.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's the thing, but the hype doesn't match what's in the bottle.
Okay.
They allocated that product, they still do. So they are marketing geniuses. This comes right out of Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
And I used to buy it when I first started, and it was about a $35 bottle. And I realized, ah, it's okay. I mean, it's just like
Uh
cigars. There's
huh.
very few that I say, I'm not going to smoke this again. Very few. Same with whiskey. Blanton's just was one that I'm not going to go buy that now. If I
Right.
have some, great. If I see one on the shelf, maybe. But it became so hard to find, and I just said, boy, and people just go nuts for it. But it's very popular, but to me, it's overhyped.
Yeah.
And the
Now, it was
hype
given to
doesn't
me as a
match what
gift,
you
and I
get.
haven't even opened it.
Yeah,
I always say I'm waiting for a special occasion to open
but
it,
you know
but
what?
I
That's
probably
special. This just like a cigar. What are some of the best memories you've had of a cigar? It's what were you doing at the time? Were you sitting around with three buddies you hadn't
yeah,
seen for a while? It some of the memory comes with that. So if you have that whiskey at a special occasion, it's going to be darn good. It's
definitely.
going to be your special
Uh,
occasion. So I don't want to take anything away from that.
right.
That's part of what being a steward is. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, but when you ask about overrated, to me, that one is because so many people are looking for it, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing that they're not familiar with craft whiskey, and they've kind of stopped there. I've reached the pinnacle. I've hit the top of the world here. I got my bottle of Blanton's, and there's so
Yeah.
much more out there that'll blow your socks off.
Now, when you're saying craft bourbon, craft whiskey, we're not finding that at our local ABC or
You can. You can
yeah.
if the distillery's local. A lot of the craft distillers that I know of, a lot of them are in Kentucky, Missouri, Colorado. They have
Right.
they have distributors in different states, so you can find them. You just once you're familiar with the name, you can go and start looking. So they're around, but
Looking for them.
they won't be in all 50 states.
Nice.
They're not going to be in
What
every
about your
market.
favorite distillery? What? that you visited? I know I'm sure you visited several or a lot, but
Yeah, I've visited quite a few, and they all have their own thing. Maker's Mark is beautiful. It's on beautiful property. It's the first one
uh-huh.
I ever visited in 2017. Um, Beautiful. Their product's good. I don't drink a ton of it. If I'm on the road, Maker's Mark is in every hotel bar in the world, I
Yeah.
think. It's just something that's there. It's a good standby. It's reliable. It's a great distillery. Buffalo Trace is so huge, and the scope and the scale of everything that you get to see from a craft side. Neely Family Distillery in Sparta, Kentucky. They are small. Their products. They do everything in a pot still, and pot still versus column still. We didn't get into any of that, but the pot still, they're making a batch of whiskey at a time, and there's
Oh, wow.
something about that process that what I don't necessarily know how a distillery operates, and I'll drink the whiskey and say I really like that one, and I'll dive into it. Oh, they're pot
Right.
stilling theirs. A lot of the Colorado distillers are doing pot stills. Deerhammer. I've never been to Deerhammer. I haven't gone to Colorado on a bourbon tour yet, but that's
Yeah.
on our list because there are quite a few really, really, really good
Yeah.
distillers
I'd
out
like
there that I want to visit. But Neely, on the craft side, it's small. There's a bunch of history. That this is their first generation of legal distillers, and it's
uh-huh.
like the 11th generation that's been here distilling. So there was a lot of moonshining in that family,
Wow.
and
Awesome.
they'll walk you through that whole history, and it was like the Hatfields and McCoys. There was a long-standing family feud that ended in death, you know, gunshots and death, and
Right.
the gun
Nice.
that was involved in that is can be seen at the distillery there. There's a lot
Oh,
of
really?
history, so yeah.
So how are you drinking? Neat or with ice, old fashions?
I do love an old fashioned, and
Yeah.
I love dabbling in those. They tend, it's basically straight alcohol and maybe well, it's got some simple syrup and it'll have some bitters. Um, Tend to throw in maybe a splash of soda, maybe if I've got
Uh-huh.
some handy, but mostly a straight booze with some fruit, cherries and orange. Uh, so I do like that. I love a whiskey sour.
Oh,
So
wow.
again, 2-3 ounces of whiskey, half a lime, half a lemon, squeezed to
Uh-huh.
get the juice out. A little bit of simple syrup and or some agave nectar or something like that, and I put an egg white in there so you get the nice foam at the
Oh, wow.
top, and spritz it with a little bitters. I love a good whiskey sour. I hate
Have you
getting
ever
them in
seen
a.
that thing on? Oh, I'm sorry, I
As I
didn't mean
say,
to interrupt you, but
no, I'm sorry. I
have you
keep
ever
yapping.
seen that thing on Facebook? Um, like the old fashioned syrup. You don't have, you just put a splash in and then you put your whiskey in.
I
It's
you
like
know I
pre-made. Have you seen that?
I have some of that. I haven't opened it yet, but anything about convenience. But an
Uh
old
huh.
fashioned is pretty easy. If you got a little cutie or halo orange, one of
Right.
those small ones, I take a disc out of that, throw that in. I take some of the good Luxardo cherries, put a couple of those in there with a little bit of the syrup and a good whiskey, a whiskey that I like, and a
Nice.
couple ice cubes
Yeah.
to chill it down,
Yeah.
and some bitters. I just um, but I have tried some of those things that
Mm.
they certainly work in a pinch. It'd be something
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you were going somewhere, maybe you're going camping and you don't want to have to bring the fruit and things like that. I think something like that works.
Right.
Tailgating be great for tailgating.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Can't
I
bring the
get
whole
it.
bar out there.
Tailgaters were mostly drinking beer, right? But you never know what if the weather's a little chillier, and I love a good cocktail when it's chillier.
All right. I got one more question for you. If you walk into a liquor store with $50, what what are we getting?
Great question. Great question. I'm just trying to picture what I'm seeing. I might look at a Maker's Mark cast strength or a little higher proof.
Uh-huh.
I might look at the bottom shelf and get 2 or 3 bottles of something that's down there. Old Granddad. I might look at a bottle of Old Forester. They've got several different varietals of bourbon. 50 bucks. I can probably get something there and walk out with a little change.
Nice.
Yeah. There's so many. There's so many price points. Again, I keep trying it because, god dang, Wild Turkey 101 isn't expensive.
Yeah.
It's a little more expensive than some things, but you're typically going to find that somewhere near the bottom shelf or one shelf up. It's good.
Yeah.
It's
But
really,
when you
really
described
good.
it to me, yeah, you told me it was very approachable. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and it's like, whoa, I might like a 101. Well, maybe you're going to go and look at something else that's around that 100 proof. Maybe
Yeah.
it tempts you to try something that's bottled in bond that has to be sold at a 100 proof, and it has to be at least 4 years old. Um, that's that entry point to things that are higher. 120,
Right.
125. You might get brave enough to try a hazmat and just see, do I even like this?
Right. Well, Jeff, hey, I appreciate what you did here for the club. Uh, you know, I've been trying to get someone to talk about, you know, with bourbon with us, and
In the heart of the night, where the laugh.
oh,
There's, I've said it many times. Don't be afraid to try.
yeah,
Keep your mind open. Keep your palate open. Try some things, and you might be surprised. Or maybe you'll say, "Huh, I knew that all along." Or don't be afraid to try it. I look back on my cigar journey. I was terrified. I'd start looking, and you get confused by the Vitola names. Why do they even use the word Vitola? Why don't you just tell me it means size? And then you've got
right,
Toros and Robustos and Epicures and Epicures a Toro if you're buying a Perdomo. And it's like, what? I'm so confused. And
yeah,
it's all noise, and there's a bunch of noise in whiskey too. There's things on the label that can confuse you. Um,
very nice.
Go for a trusted brand. Get something, give it a try, and god dang, you might realize, huh, this is pretty good.
Yeah, with different cigars, yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Jeff.
You bet.
I know you're on a podcast, like a weekly podcast about bourbon. What's that called?
It's actually the Bourbon Daily, and you can find it
Okay.
on any of the podcast catchers. So I listen on my Apple podcast, the
Yeah.
streaming. It's Bourbon Daily, and it's kind of a lighthearted. It's on every day. It gets released
Oh,
about
okay.
2 in the morning. I get invited to be a guest on that show, a couple times a month, and we'll record 4 or 5 shows
Nice.
um, in one night, and then those will play over the next 2 to 3 weeks. The Bourbon Daily. Uh, the sad thing there is that the gentleman that runs that is retiring, and in mid-December he'll be airing the last what he to now the plan is to stop recording and just start running old
Yeah.
shows as it'll be 10 years. So it,
Oh,
it
wow.
it's it's fun, but it's kind of coming to an end. But it's lighthearted. It's shows split into 2 segments. We'll one of the guests will say ask a question, so we'll have some small talk, and it could be about anything.
Right.
Most recently we talked about the Olympics, or maybe we talked about the World Cup, or what you're watching, or it could be anything. And then we'll all pour some type of whiskey, and it's most people are drinking differently from each other, and then
Yeah.
and then after the break we'll come back and there'll be a topic that's typically bourbon or whiskey related. The whole thing is
Right.
30 minutes, 30 or so. The longer ones might go 40, 45, but that's rare. But
Yeah.
that's a fun one. I can listen to that on my way to work every day. It's
Well,
perfect when I'm leaving home, I can run it at a little faster speed.
Yeah, that's what I like. I like 30-hour podcasts.
Yeah.
Cigar Authority. I'll take a couple days to listen to it to and from
Yeah,
work.
I tend to listen. If I'm home, I like to watch that one live because there's a
definitely.
group that gets in the live chat, and we're pretty active in there and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I listen to Cigar Pulpit.
Yep.
That's fun. I had the privilege of being able to join Nick for a couple hours in July.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Just had a blast. I've gotten to know him a little bit. Going to be going down to Pulpit Fest, his event in Palm Coast here, coming up in early October.
Nice. Yeah.
Be down there.
That's a short drive for me. I might have to get over there.
Swing on over and say hi.
No, we appreciate it, Jeff, and I hope you take a look at the CSO Cigar Club. We have, we have contests for the World Cup. We had a contest, and
sure.
Always for the Super Bowl and for the NHL Final, Stanley Cup, and so we're big sports oriented fans here.
That's fun. I'm unfortunately a Minnesota sports fan, and the doom and gloom that I've had to face. I'm almost 60, and it's been a rough ride.
We won't hold that against you.
Yeah,
we got Chris Jensen. He's from he's in Canada. He's a Winnipeg Jet fan, but we don't hold that against him.
Sure. I grew up. I
appreciate it, Jeff.
Winnipeg, so yeah. No, it's great, Joseph. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care.
We'll talk to you soon. All right.
In the heart of the night, where the laughter flows, gather round the table where the good times grow, with a cigar in hand and a drink by our side. We're the CSO crew, let the worries slide. So light it up, let the smoke fill the air.
Appreciate it. Thanks again, Jeff.
With stories to share, raise a glass to the moments.